Discover 4 spine-chilling deep woods tales that expose sinister secrets and haunted mysteries. Sarah pulled the car up the winding dirt path, the tires crunching against gravel as they approached the cabin's entrance. Its weathered wood and chipped paint loomed ahead, casting elongated shadows that clung to the fading sunlight. The Appalachian Mountains surrounded them, majestic and isolating, yet something felt wrong. An invisible weight pressed against her chest. Emily and Ben, wide-eyed and anxious, took in the cabin like it was a ghost story about to come to life. Looking out of the car, she noticed several neighbors standing at the edge of the forest. Their faces were pale, framed with pasty smiles that twisted Sarah's stomach. "Mom, do they live here?" Emily asked, an edge of excitement in her voice tinged with unease. Sarah nodded, forcing a smile, but dread thickened the air around them. The town itself felt dead, as though the world had pressed pause. Wisps of fog hung in the trees, shrouding secrets just beneath the surface. Each day, Sarah fought to create a semblance of normalcy for her children. They would go for walks, pick wildflowers, and try to forget their past. But at night, the quiet howls echoed through the woods, serrated sounds that were more than just the calls of distant wolves. One evening, while tucking Ben in, she heard a faint whisper. Sarah, it was barely audible, just beyond the window. She shivered and pulled the curtains shut, her heart racing. The sound of phantom voices wrapped itself around her, staying long after she turned off the light. It was Emily who started bringing strange things back from the bushes, carvings etched into tree bark, shadowy figures that flickered at the corner of her vision. A chill gripped Sarah as Emily spoke excitedly about the friends she saw lurking in the woods. "They want to show me something, Mom," was the last thing she wanted to hear. As Sarah rummaged through the attic, she hoped to unearth family memories to help them heal. Instead, she found an old album filled with yellowing photographs. Her father's neighbors stared back at her, eyes dark and hollow, the same unsettling familiarity that made her skin crawl. Each caption told tales of those who had vanished, stories that tainted the air like sulfur, a reminder of the forest's treachery. That night, a storm rolled in, crashing against the cabin in great waves of thunder. The lights flickered, plunging them into thick darkness. Sarah hugged her children close, feeling the icy fingers of fear wrapping around her heart. The howls grew louder, twisted, anguished cries that clawed at her very soul. She locked the door, her breath quickening as she glanced outside. The neighbors stood just beyond the tree line, their glimmering eyes similar to predators surveying their prey. They weren't just watching, they were waiting. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With every lock clicked, dread seeped deeper into her bones. She overheard frantic whispers outside. "They can't stay, not here." The realization struck like a lightning bolt, they knew her family. Throat tight, she felt time freeze. Then, there came that voice again, sweet and whispering, "Come play with us, Sarah." She swallowed hard, adrenaline surging. A fierce instinct to protect her children kicked in. As Sarah's mind raced for a way out, she was trapped in the horror creeping at the edges of her sanity. The woods were hungry, and she could sense their appetite growing. What awaited them beyond those doors? Were their lives intertwined with the forest's sinister secrets? The wind howled through the trees, a mournful wail that matched the fear thrumming through Sarah's veins. The shadows outside stretched and twisted, as if animated by some unseen presence. She took a deep breath, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and decay, trying to steady her racing heart. "Mom?" Ben's voice broke through the suffocating silence, his small hand clinging to her arm. "I'm scared." Sarah knelt down, forcing herself to meet his gaze. She wasn't just scared. She was terrified. "Me too, buddy," she whispered, hoping her calm facade would protect him. "But we'll be okay. Just stick close to me." The howling noises intensified, morphing into a chorus of sorrow that echoed like a chant creeping closer. She glanced at Emily, who sat cross-legged on the floor, her eyes wide but unafraid. "Mom, can we go outside now?" "Absolutely not," Sarah snapped, barely keeping her own panic in check. "Not until morning, okay? We have to stay inside." A heavy knock rattled the cabin door, sending a bolt of icy fear through her. It wasn't gentle, it was insistent, like a sinister invitation. The whispers outside grew louder, voices slithering around her, intoxicating in their allure. "Let us in, Sarah, it's safe out here." She pressed her palms against her ears, fighting to block out the haunting whispers. "Go upstairs, both of you. Now." Obeying her urgency, Emily and Ben scrambled up the stairs, their footsteps eerily silent in the tense atmosphere. Heart pounding, Sarah turned to the door, her breath catching in her throat. Torn between fear and a compulsion to know, she edged toward the window and peeked through the curtain. The neighbors stood in a close-knit circle under the trees, faces barely distinguishable in the dim light. Their mouths moved, but no sound reached her, just an unsettling rhythm of swaying bodies. Darkness draped over everything, making their pale skin glow faintly, like the phosphorescence of some cursed creature. Suddenly, a flash of lightning shattered the night, illuminating the scene outside. For a brief moment, she saw them clearly, haunting smiles plastered across gaunt faces, dark eyes glimmering, reflecting something ancient and wicked. "Sarah," a voice drifted up to her, honeyed and malevolent. "Come out to play." She recoiled, a scream lodged in her throat. Remembering the photographs from the attic, the faces of those who had vanished, a shiver of realization coursed through her. They weren't just neighbors, they were beckoning her family towards their fate. Rushing back, she locked the window, sealing away the terror. She needed a plan. "We'll leave tomorrow morning," she muttered to herself, glancing at the children's room, half expecting to see them waiting for her. But the house fell eerily quiet. "Emily? Ben?" Her voice shook with terror as she moved toward their room. The door stood slightly ajar, a dark chasm of uncertainty. Swallowing hard, she pushed it open. No sign of them. Panic surged as her mind raced through scenarios, each one darker than the last. "Guys? Where are you?" A chill crawled down her spine, a sudden realization that this wasn't just a game. "Mom, help!" The scream pierced through the stillness from downstairs, sending Sarah racing down the hall, heart pounding. She stumbled over her own feet, gripping the banister as she hurried down the stairs. Each step echoed like a final countdown, amplifying the dread building inside her. "Mom, please!" Another terrified cry rang out, pulling at a primal instinct to protect. She could not lose them. When she reached the last step, the front door stood wide open, swinging in the breeze, beckoning her closer. Beyond it lay the dark woods, gnarled branches like fingers stretching toward the cabin, inviting her to follow. Sarah, it was that voice again, smooth and enticing, promising safety and release. "Come join us." Every muscle screamed for her to run, to flee, but the darkness whispered for her to step outside. What awaited her in the clearing just beyond the door? The answer lurked there, a truth that could shatter her completely. She hesitated, heart racing, both longing and dread coiling within her. Would she step into the unknown and risk everything to find her children? Or would the forest consume them all? The wind lashed against the cabin, rattling the walls as if it were trying to break in. Sarah stood paralyzed at the threshold, heart hammering in her chest. The world beyond the door seemed darker, more alive, and her instincts screamed at her to retreat. But their voices called to her a seductive, sinister melody that crept into her thoughts. "Mom!" The cries echoed again, desperate and terrified, dragging her back to reality. She couldn't hesitate. The depths of the forest seemed to pulse with a hunger, and she wasn't about to let it claim her children. Emily! Ben! She shouted as she sprinted out the door, her feet pounding against the soft earth, the chill clawing at her skin. The shadows swallowed her whole as she stepped away from the cabin, a swirling vortex of darkness pulling her in. The illumination of lightning flashed again, showing her the path ahead. It flickered like the dim glow of a dying candle, revealing just enough of the twisted trees and thorny underbrush. Each step felt heavier, like an unseen force gripped her ankles, urging her to stay. Panic gripped her throat, but she pressed forward. Why did I let them out? She chided silently, agony twisting through her. The sound of soft whimpers echoed through the trees, leading her deeper. Guys, where are you? Mom, we're here. A voice whispered, barely audible, but close. Too close. She stumbled into a clearing, illuminated by the eerie glow of the moon, casting grotesque shadows that danced mockingly at her presence. In the center stood those pale figures, swaying gently, their haunting faces smeared with unearthly joy. They were her neighbors, the ones who had vanished, the ones whose photos had haunted her dreams. Sarah, they chanted, a collective hum that rose and fell like a disturbing lullaby. Join us, the rapture twisted through the air, pulling at the fibers of her sanity. Where were Emily and Ben? Fear clawed at her insides, but she fought the temptation to listen. Mom, help! Another shriek erupted from nearby bushes. The plea sliced through the torment. She spun around, searching for her children, her heart racing. Mom, please! Stay! Join. The figures swayed closer, the horror stretching across their faces, mouths curling into grotesque grins. It was exquisite pain mixed with an insatiable hunger, their eyes glistening with malevolence. Get away from them! Sarah felt a surge of rage and grief coursing through her. Ignoring the shadows that coiled and beckoned, she ran toward the sound, the branches clawing at her skin. Suddenly, she burst through the underbrush into another clearing, and there they were, Emily and Ben, their small forms huddled together. Relief washed over her like a soothing balm, but it quickly turned to dread. They stared wide-eyed at something behind her, frozen with fear. Run! Sarah screamed, lunging toward them, but it was too late. The figures, now fully formed and towering, blocked their path. They loomed over her children, whispers winding through the air, a chorus that promised peace, but spoke of death. Join us, they repeated, their voices like knives scraping against the fragile remnants of her hope. No! Sarah screamed, pushing through the thrumming chaos in her brain. She reached for her children, but as her fingers brushed against them, the world shifted. Everything felt wrong, twisted and upside down. The phantasmal hand stretched out, brushing against her skin, cold and clammy. Gasping, she yanked her children to her, protective instinct breaking through the fog that enveloped her. We have to go. But the shadows surged forward. She felt herself being pulled away, the darkness gripping at her limbs, the melody of despair mixing with the cries of her children. Mom! Their voices resonated with terror, breaking through the overwhelming chant. In that moment, as she felt the last remnants of her resolve slipping, she saw something glitter amid the dark. It could be hope or it could be despair. Would she find a way to pull them all back to the surface? Or would they drown in the calling darkness? She took a deep breath. Preparing to fight, but the forest wasn't done with them yet. What were these figures really, and what would happen when the shadows took a firm hold? The answer lurked just beyond the perceived safety of their grasp. The shadows twisted and writhed, their figures contorting like marionettes in a terrifying dance. Sarah tightened her grip around Emily and Ben, their small bodies trembling against her. She felt their fear seep through her fingers, mingling with her own. Mom, they're not real. Emily whimpered, her voice barely above a whisper, eyes wide with terror. They're real, honey. Stay close. Sarah urged, putting herself between her children and the encroaching darkness. The pale faces grinned back at her, a haunting tableau frozen in time. Memories flooded her mind, every missing poster, every whispered rumor. These were the victims, the lost souls she had never believed could haunt her life. The figures started to hum again, the melody rippling through the air, resonating deep within Sarah's bones. "Join us," they sang, each word a silky dagger seeking resolve. It promised comfort, a way to escape the terror surrounding her. "No!" Sarah shouted, shaking her head fiercely. She forced herself to push back against the wave of despair threatening to pull her under. "You can't have my kids." As if reacting to her defiance, the figures lunged closer, their movements swift and ghostly. Time twisted, seconds felt like hours as their arms stretched forth, fingers clawing at the air, eager for flesh. Sarah stepped back instinctively, her heart racing. She caught a glimpse of the darkness behind them, tentacles of shadow winding through the trees, waiting for a chance to snatch her children. "Run!" she urged, panic rising in her throat. They turned to dash back into the woods, but the ground shifted beneath her feet. The earthy floor, once solid, became a treacherous mire, pulling her down like quicksand. "Emily! Ben!" The children cried out, and she turned to see the figures still advancing. Their expressions morphed from joy to feral desire, teeth glistening in the moonlight. "Join us," they insisted, their song gaining strength, becoming a tangible force that clawed at Sarah's sanity. She felt the confusion begin to wash over her, the song echoing sweetly, drowning out her thoughts. "What are they?" she wondered, swaying slightly, as though caught in the thrall of their call. Was there a truth behind the monstrosity? No. With all her strength, she grabbed her children, pulling them back towards her. The love she felt was a weapon against the hypnotic spell. "We need to find a way out, now." Desperately, they turned, sprinting through the underbrush. The darkness tried to reel them back, branches snaking out like spectral hands seeking to drag them back into the horror. They could hear the whispers behind them, echoing through the trees, growing angrier, more frantic with each step they took. Then, amid the chaos, Sarah heard it, a single, chilling voice breaking through the cacophony, distinct and clear as glass. You cannot escape. The voice was familiar, yet it sent chills racing down her spine. Time stretched out as they fled, each second heavy with dread. She took one last look over her shoulder, and when she saw it, a cry from the shadows, a face she recognized, someone she thought she had lost to the darkness, now alive and beckoning. "Help us," the face pleaded eerily, trapped in the whispers that surrounded them. Heart racing, Sarah felt her resolve crumble. It was there, that flicker of hope, but it begged a question she couldn't ignore. What if Mom? "Keep going!" Ben screamed, dragging her back to reality. They pressed onward, the forest closing in like the jaws of a beast ready to snap. And yet, in their mad flight, a terrifying thought invaded her mind. What if this was all a trap? The trees watched silently, their gnarled branches twisting like fingers ready to grip. Sarah felt the eyes upon them, the forest alive and breathing, waiting with patience. This was only the beginning of a nightmare, not the end. "Mom, what's out there? What do they want?" Emily asked, fear cracking her innocent voice. I don't know," Sarah admitted, her breath heavy. The truth was, they weren't just fighting for their lives. They were stepping deeper into a world beyond reason, a world that hungered for their very souls. What other horrors lay hidden beneath the surface? And who would claim victory in this dreadful game of darkness? As the tendrils of despair wrapped tighter, one thing was clear: the forest had no intentions of letting them leave easily. The shadows closed in, pulsing around them like a living creature, suffocating the air. Sarah's heart hammered in her chest as she darted forward, her children clinging to her side. She could feel the presence of something sinister just behind them, a tangible weight pressing against her back. "Mom, I'm scared," Ben cried out, his voice breaking. "I know, baby. Just hold on, she urged, almost choking on her words. The forest around them shifted, the branches whispering secrets only the dark could understand. The melody from before still lingered, curling around her mind. Join us. No. She yelled, shaking her head hard. She focused on moving, shifting through branches that clawed at her clothes and skin. Panic bubbled up inside her as she imagined the faces she had seen, a tangle of sorrow and longing. Those were children. They had once been like Emily and Ben, innocent. We can't stop. We have to keep going. Sarah felt her voice rise with determination, pushing them forward. They stumbled over roots that clawed at their feet, the ground shifting dangerously beneath them. Then, like a flash of lightning, a memory struck her, an old legend about these woods. Stories shared around campfires during summer nights, whispered voices warning of a curse. Those who entered the forest might never return. The bodies of the lost were said to linger, waiting to claim their own. Mom, what's that? Emily pointed ahead, her finger trembling. In the dim light, a flicker caught Sarah's eye, a fire, flickering between the trees, a glow that felt wrong. It beckoned, seductive in its warmth, and her gut twisted with instinctive dread. Do we go towards the fire? Ben's eyes were wide, a mix of fear and awe. No. We don't go towards the light. We keep moving, just like we talked about. Sarah insisted, dragging them away from the lure. Tears gathered at the edges of her vision. How long could they run? The whispering shadows were relentless and hungry. A sudden scream pierced through the air, slicing into her heart. The haunting cry echoed like a siren song, a reminder of the faces that had called out before, lost and trapped. Mom! What if they can find us? Emily whimpered. They won tea, Sarah gritted her teeth, but doubt wormed through her mind. They can't. The forest seemed to tangle deeper, trapping them, making every path feel like a dead end. Each breath was an effort as despair tried to claw its way back in. Then, without warning, a figure jumped into their path, a child, small and pale, with wide eyes that glimmered like the midnight sky. You have to help them, it gasped. Help who? Sarah's voice trembled, eyes darting around for uncanny movements. But the figure only pointed into the depths of the trees, where an ominous hush held the air tight. Please, before they get you. The child's voice faded as the shadows surged forward, merging into a darker mass that loomed behind Sarah. We have to go. Now, she screamed, yanking her kids close. The child stayed rooted, fingers trailing the air before it vanished like smoke. Panic surged as she moved again, her trust slipping. The trees grimaced at her, nodding together as if sharing a sinister plot they wouldn't reveal. Each step dragged heavily, as if the forest itself conspired against them. Why won't it end? Ben cried, his breath urgent. Because it's just beginning. The realization slammed into Sarah like a cold wave. What if the forest didn't want them dead? What if they were meant to join the others, to be a part of this darkness? The thought clawed at her resolve, shaking her as she ran. Tanks of shadow loomed ahead, a thick fog closing in, swallowing the last shreds of light. Every heartbeat resonated with the ominous song, a cruel invitation that promised peace in exchange for a soul. Keep running. She ordered, but doubt lingered in her chest. The ground pulsed beneath them, and she could sense something waiting, lurking within the shadows. Just then, a sharp crack echoed nearby, causing her heart to leap into her throat. There was something more out there, and whatever it was closing in fast. Would they face the looming darkness together, or be swallowed whole? As the whispering grew louder, Sarah knew one thing: they had to confront the heart of terror that resided within the woods. The forest had awakened and it was angry. What if we can't escape? Emily's soft question cut through the tension. And suddenly, all certainty faded. Ahead, they stumbled into a clearing bathed in moonlight, revealing something that made Sarah's breath hitch, shadows writhing in a circle, etched into the ground, as if the very earth cradled a sinister secret. What lies hidden beneath? Sarah's racing thoughts echoed the growing dread. There, in the clearing, a figure rose slowly from the shadows, just beyond reach, its eyes burning with an otherworldly glow. "Join us," it whispered, an echo of the past, and an omen of a fate yet to be sealed. Now, with an unyielding pull, they teetered at the threshold of their darkest fears. Could they confront what lay ahead? Or would they too surrender to the darkness? The figure in the clearing stepped closer, its form shifting like smoke caught in a summer breeze. The moonlight danced around it, illuminating its features just enough for Sarah to recognize the childlike face, twisted in a mockery of innocence. The whispers swelled, echoing through the trees, a cacophony of pleading voices. Join us, Mom!" Ben shrieked, tearing his eyes from the enticing glow. "I don't want to be here." He clutched Emily tighter, trembling. Sarah kneeled down, meeting their wide, terror-filled eyes. "We have to stay together. No matter what, don't let go of my hand," she urged, trying to keep her voice steady, though her heart raced with dread. They stumbled backward, the shadows around them growing thicker, more oppressive. Those penetrating eyes, their glint like hungry stars, followed every movement. The forest had come alive, its breath heavy and acrid. The trees creaked and moaned as if they mourned some lost and terrible fate. The clearing seemed to pulse with life. Beneath their feet, the ground felt warm, almost as if breath flowed from it. "We can't stop," Sarah insisted. But the call of that shadowy figure pulled at her heart like a noose tightening around her throat. "Stay away!" Sarah shouted, summoning all her courage. She turned to run, dragging her children behind her, the terrible anger of the forest rippling with each step. They veered off the path, pushing deeper into the darkened woods, the branches grabbing at them like skeletal fingers. "Where are we going, Mom?" Emily gasped, tears slicking her cheeks. "Anywhere but here." Suddenly, the oppressive atmosphere shifted. A screech echoed through the woods, louder than anything they had heard before. Trees trembled as if in fear, and a heavy silence settled, broken only by the harsh sound of their breaths. Out of the darkness, the spectral shapes emerged. Faces of children, each more wretched than the last, twisted in agony, clawing at the air, eyes bulging with a haunting desperation. "Help us, we're lost, please, Mom." "What are they?" Ben cried, his voice breaking. "They are just shadows," she whispered, but doubt gnawed at her mind. What if these were the echoes of those who had come before them? What if they were destined to become part of this hellish realm? "Just keep running," Sarah shouted, her voice barely masking her fear. As she pushed through the foliage, they reached a stone outcropping. Light from the moon dripped through the cracked stones, revealing carving symbols she couldn't decipher. They were etched deep, flowing with an ancient, dark energy that thrummed in the air. Seized by an inexplicable force, she stepped closer, fingers brushing against the cold stone. A sharp gasp escaped her lips, visions flashed before her like lightning, figures twisted and writhing, names screaming for justice, desperately clawing against the earth. "We must break the curse." Overwhelmed, she felt the tendrils of despair wrap tightly around her throat. "Mom, they're coming!" Emily shrieked, pulling at her. Sarah turned, but too late. The shadows surged with an insatiable hunger, reaching for her children, eyes glinting with malice. "No! Stay behind me!" she cried, her heart pounding against her ribs as she threw herself in front of them. The whispers morphed into a roar, drowning out her thoughts, forcing her onto her knees as a terrible pressure built in her chest. "We can't surrender." Desperation fueled her thoughts, and she grasped for any flicker of strength left within her. It came to her a memory of light, of love, of hope. An image of her family gathered around the fireplace, laughing, warm. "We are stronger together," she shouted, drawing her kids closer. But just as she spoke those words of defiance, a dark force pulled her back towards the shadows, as if the forest itself was conspiring to drag them in. "Help us, join us," the voices echoed as the shadows twisted and writhed, their darkness swirling into a cyclone, threatening to engulf them all. Sarah clung to her children with every ounce of her being, but the grip of the night was relentless. Just as she felt the darkness closing in, her vision blurred. A flash of light broke through the canopy. "What?" she gasped, holding on desperately. Suddenly, the clearing erupted with a blinding light, revealing a gnarled figure standing tall, cloaked in shifting shadows. "You cannot escape," it intoned, voice a chilling drawl that chilled her core. Who are you?" she stammered, the fear pooling in her stomach. It stepped closer, its hollow gaze locking onto hers. "I am the keeper of their souls, and you've just begun to pay the price." As that ominous truth settled around her, the shadows surged forth. Would they be consumed, or could they escape this hellish nightmare? And in that moment, a scream pierced the air once more, a scream that didn't belong to any of them. A sound so filled with terror, it cut through the chaos, heralding something worse approaching from the depths of the darkened woods. What awaited them next was a fate that had not yet been sealed. The blinding light flickered and dimmed, leaving Sarah squinting, desperately trying to catch sight of the looming figure. What had she stumbled upon? The air crackled with energy, a volatile mix of dread and an underlying pull like a tide rising. The whispers transformed into an eerie symphony, filling her ears with the groundswell of sorrow. It felt as if the very souls around them were entwining with the dark threads of the forest. The gnarled figure remained shrouded in shadows, yet the weight of its gaze bore down on her, a tangible force. Sarah's knees threatened to buckle under the suffocating pressure. "Do not falter," the keeper intoned, its voice drowning out the whispers. "You must choose." "Choose what?" she demanded, fists clenched. The ground beneath her felt like it could swallow her whole. Ben and Emily huddled closer, their small forms shivering against the onslaught of terror. "Join the lost," it whispered, extending a bony hand toward the swirling shadows, a gesture inviting yet menacing. "Never." Sarah shot back, her voice cracking but resolute. The urge to flee clawed at her, yet she could feel the darkness pulsing, the hunger within it almost palpable. Around them, the specters of trapped children lunged, their cries echoing around the clearing, drawing nearer like moths to a flame. But just as the shadows began to close in, Sarah's heart flickered with a fierce spark. Images of happier days surfaced: family dinners, laughter in the park, both mundane and magical moments she'd taken for granted. Those memories fortified her resolve and lent her strength instead of fear. "Stay back. We are family. We won't let you win," she screamed, her voice reverberating through the trees. In a sudden rush of adrenaline, she grabbed her children's hands tightly. The shadows hesitated, as if her declaration created an invisible barrier. "You think love can protect you?" the keeper sneered, amber eyes narrowing menacingly. "No, but it'll give us the fight to escape your grasp." With that, Sarah pulled her children close, swirling around on her heel, intent on darting back into the forest. Branches gnarled like fingers when they fled, stabbing towards them as they broke free. A shock of cold pressed against her back, the keeper's laughter twisting through the air behind them. "You can run, but you cannot hide. Their screams will follow." In their mad dash, the forest rose like a wall on either side, ensnaring them in a labyrinth of darkness. Every breath was a challenge, filled with the scent of decay and damp earth. Shadows stretched, reaching for them, and once again, the echoes returned. "Help us, Mom, I can't breathe," Ben cried, collapsing onto the forest floor, gasping for air. "Get up. Please, you have to get up," she pleaded, panic surging through her veins. The thought of losing them was more fearsome than any shadow lurking. Emily looked back, tears streaking down her face, clinging to the fading image of the gnarled figure. "Mom, what if we join them?" "They will just take us," Sarah said, urgency clawing at her throat. "We must find a way to break free." We're not lost yet. They stumbled through the underbrush, the light from the moon seeming to flicker, as the trees beckoned them deeper. But now, another sound drifted through the air, low and guttural, a sound of something alive but wrong, an echo mixed with the children's cries. Terrified, Sarah turned sharply, a stream of doubt trickling into her mind. What if the shadows wanted more than just to ensnare them? What if they sought to unite as one, feeding off the essence of the living? Just ahead, an ancient tree stood alone, its gnarled limbs twisting upward like skeletal fingers grasping for an unseen sky. "The tree, we can hide there," she shouted, dragging her children toward it. They tore through the underbrush, and just as they reached the sanctuary of the tree, a dark wind swept through the clearing. It felt alive, tasting their fear, throwing leaves into disarray like a chaotic whirlwind. The keeper's voice erupted around them, echoing ominously, "You can't hide from the truth. Forever. The cycle demands a secret." Sarah pressed against the aged bark, forming a protective circle with her children. "We can't give in. We can't." But the shadows were relentless, slinking closer, seeping into the crevices of the world around them. The unveiling cycle, did they have the will to disrupt it? Fear thundered in her heart as she squeezed her children tighter. And just when they thought they could draw their next breath, the horrifying echo of laughter rang through the woods, otherworldly and full of malice, as if the forest itself was challenging them. Somewhere in the depths of the shadows, a new horror lurked, waiting to strike. How long could they resist before the truth was revealed? What dark secret lay buried beneath the roots of the ancient tree? As the hollow laughter faded into a suffocating silence, Sarah felt an unnatural warmth blanket the clearing. It clung to her skin, mingling with the cold sweat of terror that dripped down her spine. Clenching her eyes shut for a moment, she focused on the heartbeat of her children beside her, their breaths shallow, their small frames trembling. Then, the unmistakable sound of rustling leaves broke the stillness. Faint silhouettes shifted in the darkness, shadows elongating as if reaching for them with hungry hands. "What do we do, Mom?" Emily whispered, her voice trembling, laced with fear. "Trust me," Sarah responded, her own voice wavering as she scanned their surroundings, desperately searching for a hint of escape. The ancient tree, looming over them like a sentinel, seemed both a refuge and a trap. "We'll climb. If we can get high enough, maybe they can't reach us," she decided, her resolve hardening despite the growing dread. With Ben's help, she hoisted Emily onto her shoulders, and then pulled Ben up into her arms. Together, they scrambled to pull themselves up the rough bark, urgency fueling their movements. The shadows beneath shifted closer, swirling in a silent storm, as if sensing their ascent. "Mom, what if they find us?" Ben whimpered, barely clinging to her as they climbed higher. "Don't look down. Just hold on tight." Her heart raced as she heard soft, mocking whispers weaving through the trees. "They're just trees, they won't hurt you," but even as she said it, she felt the branches scratch against her, urging her to fall. Reaching a sturdy branch, they paused to catch their breath, adrenaline coursing through them like fire. But the momentary calm shattered. A thud reverberated through the air as something heavy crashed into the trunk below. The ground shook, followed by bone-chilling laughter that echoed eerily through the woods. "Secrets will surface," Sarah the keeper's voice slithered up from the depths of the forest, vibrating through the very trunk they clung to. "You cannot escape your fate." "What fate?" Sarah shouted back, her voice barely masking her fear. "We won't let you take us." But even as she spoke, guilt gnawed at her insides. Was she failing her children? Would their family be part of the lost forever, or could they break the cycle? Exhaustion seeped in, the weight of despair mingling with her protective instincts. The sounds below shifted, sprinting away from the tree for just a moment, only to return this time with a chorus of anguished cries. "Join us! Join us!" It sang, distant yet resonating deeply, luring her with the echoes of those who had come before. "What do they want?" Emily hardly dared to whisper, the fear tightening around her throat. They want us to surrender to forget. Sarah answered, trembling hands clutching the rough bark as the shadows danced below, restless and impatient. And then, out of the darkness, a form began to emerge, not the keeper, but a figure unlike any other. A child? No, a specter, glowing faintly amidst the darkness, eyes wide and pleading. "Help me," it whispered, stretching out a hand toward them, filled with longing, desperation twisting its features. "Don't look, don't listen," Sarah screamed, pulling her children closer. As the specter drifted nearer, a horrible cold washed over her, filled with the weight of despair. It seeped into her bones, whispering truths that clawed at her mind. Suddenly, a bright flash illuminated the forest, causing the shadows to retreat momentarily. In that instant, she spotted a narrow path that ran through the dense underbrush. "There. We can jump to that direction." She pointed, breathless with hope. As a renewed surge of determination rushed through her, the specter shrieked a spine-chilling wail that resonated deep into the heart of the forest. "Join us or be lost forever." With a desperate leap, she pulled her children close and plunged toward the path, the darkness creeping back, hungry to reclaim them. Would the path lead to salvation or deeper into the abyss? What would she have to confront as they raced against the darkness behind them? They landed hard on the forest floor, branches cracking beneath them, their momentum carrying them forward. The path was narrow, bordered by twisted trees that loomed like sentinels, obscuring any hope of light. The laughter from above faded, but only temporarily. The forest felt alive, hungry, and relentless. "Keep running," Sarah urged, fear lending her voice an urgency that propelled them. Ben and Emily stumbled alongside her, their little legs struggling to keep pace. Chills raced down her spine as she sensed eyes watching them, shadows shifting in their periphery. The deeper they went, the thicker the air became, suffocating with a strange, earthy sweetness. It clung to her lungs, turning her breath into ragged gasps. "Mom, I can't breathe," Emily cried, panic creeping into her voice. "Just a little further," Sarah yelled, determination pushing against the weight of despair. She could feel the ground quaking underfoot, something massive pursuing them. Suddenly, the underbrush parted, revealing an old clearing cloaked in an oppressive silence. The trees stood as if in reverence, their bark twisted into terrified faces that screamed without sound. Standing in the center of the clearing was a dirt mound, partially covered by rotting leaves. Sarah's heart dropped, something about it felt ominous, a gravity she couldn't ignore. Against her better judgment, she halted, yanking Emily and Ben close. "What is this place?" she murmured, scanning the edges for movement, feeling the tremors of impending doom tighten around her. The laughter returned, it crept around them, mocking, hungry. Secrets buried deep echoed a chorus of whispering voices, chilling her to the bone. The children pressed against her, their eyes wide with confusion and fear. "Let us keep moving," Sarah insisted, though a part of her was drawn toward the mound. Was there something to find? A chance to uncover the truth behind their torment? "No. We have to go back," Emily protested, her voice an urgent whip crack in the stillness. "I don't want to stay here." Before Sarah could respond, the ground shifted beneath them. It groaned like a living creature waking from a deep sleep. Mud slid away, making it impossible to remain steady. Then, bits of something fingers grasped from below, flailing toward the surface. The sight was horrifying, the tinges of pale skin and blackened nails clawing their way out, desperate, alive. "Mom!" Ben cried, desperation curling in his words. "What is happening?" Sarah felt her heart race, a growing sense of dread rooted that was now an anchor pulling her down. She pulled her children close, but the air had thickened with despair, as if the very trees were conspiring to imprison them. "What are you doing? Help us!" cried a voice from the mound, stained with bitterness and pain. It was accusing. It was familiar. She recognized it in an instant, a voice from the past, long buried with her lost memories. It haunted her, twisting the dagger of guilt deeper. "Don't listen," Sarah shouted, forcing her fear into her voice. "We have to go." But the specters were rising, more unleashed from the depths. Hands began to grasp at her legs, eyes wide with pent-up anguish, pleading not for help but for her to join them. "Join us or be doomed," they wailed, echoing the past characters lost in a twisted tale of tragedy. "Run!" she screamed as she yanked on Ben's hand, pulling Emily to follow. Yet it was no longer just her children that she had to protect. Their very future was at stake as shadows advanced, ants swarming over their feet, inching closer. The mound-esque grasp was insistent, wrapping around her ankles like a vice. The path ahead seemed narrower, darker. But to stay meant anticipation of the dark ones reaching from below. They had to make a choice, escape or succumb. Drawing on every ounce of will, Sarah propelled herself forward, begging them to keep pace, knowing if they faltered just once, the shadows might snatch them into that darkness forever. Yet, with each frantic step, a new rush of voices filled the air, taunting, urging, threatening. "Nothing will change. You will end like us." The voices fell silent once more as they barreled deeper into the woods. But what lay ahead still hung like a specter across their future, unseen and unspoken. Would they drown in the echoes of the past, or could salvation still exist in the uncharted recesses of the forest? As they ran, Sarah caught a fleeting glimpse of a weathered sign half buried in the foliage, "Beware the keeper of secrets." It was warning or invitation, she couldn't tell. But one thing was certain: the shadows were not finished with her just yet. What waited behind the next turn? Would they discover the true heart of darkness? The forest throbbed with anticipation, shadows curling and stretching like restless serpents. Sarah clutched Ben and Emily tighter, her heart racing to the beat of their collective fear. Her thoughts swirled in chaos, thoughts of their fleeting moments together, hugs shared and laughter echoed, memories that now seemed to vibrate with desperation. As they pushed forward, the whispers grew in intensity, a haunting melody, sweet yet sinister. "You can't outrun us," it taunted, transforming echoes of dread into a sickening harmony. Her resolve burned hotter, she could not allow the darkness to claim them. "Faster," she urged, breathless but fierce. "Don't look back." They squeezed through the tangled underbrush, branches clawing at their clothes, desperate to pull them back into obscurity. Beneath their feet, the earth felt alive, throbbing with untold secrets buried deep. In that moment, Sarah realized this wasn't merely a fight for her children, it was a battle for their souls. Ahead lay an old stone archway, partially obscured by vines. It pulsed with a strange energy, giving off an otherworldly golden glow. "It's a way out," she gasped, heart soaring at the sight, but doubt twisted her stomach. "What if it's another trap?" Emily whispered, her small voice wavering, laced with uncertainty. Sarah hesitated, glancing back at the dark mass funneling closer. "No turning back. We have to trust ourselves." "Together," she replied, steeling her voice, though uncertainty gnawed at her. Gripping their hands, they stepped toward the archway, now fully illuminated, beckoning them forward with its eerie allure. But as they approached, the shadows writhed with renewed hunger. "They can't leave," the voices wailed in a crescendo of despair. "Join us. Be one with the darkness." Clenching her jaw, Sarah pressed onward, feeling an inexplicable force pulling at her limbs, whispering doubts into her mind. "This is not the end," she shouted back against the rising tide of fear. The archway shimmered, flickering as if recognizing her defiance. As they stepped through the archway, the world shifted violently. The air crackled, drenched in the scent of pine and damp earth. For a fleeting moment, the oppressive weight of the forest lifted. "Where are we?" Ben gasped, wide-eyed. The air was still, the shadows now muted behind them. Before them lay a glistening path leading to a sparkling river, untouched by darkness. Dappled sunlight danced on the water's surface, reflecting hues of hope that clashed against their previous fears. "Look!" Emily pointed to the river, where a bridge spanned its width, made of shimmering stone. "Can we cross?" "Yes," Sarah said, energized by the sight of the bridge, stepping forward with resolve despite the sensation that time was rapidly creeping away. They rushed toward the bridge, glancing behind them, dreading the darkness would creep back into their lives. But the shadows couldn't cross? Could they? "Hold on tight," Sarah ordered, leading her children across the bridge, its stones warm beneath their feet. Each step felt like a desperate prayer, a wish to leave the terror behind forever. The sweet sound of flowing water filled her ears as they neared the other side, the darkness diminished, a mere specter fading from view. But just as they reached the shore, the shadows roared, their terrible cries echoing wildly in the air. "You cannot escape your fates." The sinister voices mingled with a triumphant howl, revealing the depth of their anger at being thwarted. "Don't listen. Move!" Sarah yelled, heart pounding as the shadows converged, clawing at the edge of the bridge, desperate to regain their hold. With a final leap, they cleared the threshold, tumbling onto the grassy bank beyond. The moment they landed, an ominous hush fell over them, a silence thick with weight, heavy and foreboding. Panting, Sarah turned to face the bridge, watching the shadows howl in rage, swirling helplessly at the foot of the archway, unable to touch the other side. The disconnect mirrored the rift in her own heart, a bittersweet victory heating her resolve. "Now what?" Emily asked, looking up at her mother, tears glistening in her innocent eyes. "We find the way home," Sarah whispered, her voice unwavering. "We will take this knowledge, this love, and defeat the darkness." As she gazed across the river, sunlight beaming on the far bank, a path ahead became apparent, a fork leading into a warm, sunlit meadow. "Let us go," she exclaimed, hearts racing together toward the light. The weight of the woods lifted as they ventured forth, leaving behind the haunting shadows. With each step, her heart felt lighter, echoing the beauty of a world brimming with life, hope, and a promising future together. They survived. They were alive. And even in the face of darkness, they had forged everlasting bonds. Despite the lurking specters of the past, they pressed on, hand in hand, ready to create new memories, determined to flourish under the sun. As they stepped into the meadow, finally free from the forest's clutches, Sarah let out a shaky breath, a promise, a vow that would guide them on their journey. And perhaps, just perhaps, in their new beginnings, the forest would whisper other tales, tales of strength rather than sorrow. If you've made it to the end, thank you. But hold on. Now is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Your engagement matters more than ever. And don't forget to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear from you. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Only true fans understand how important it is to support the channel through these actions. Let us spread the word and keep these timeless tales alive.